You know, I can imagine for hikers living in New Mexico, climbing the state's highest peak must be a rite of passage. For me, coming from California, it was just right. From the parking lot, I hiked down the road to the bottom of the number 4 Kachina chairlift. And as always, directions to the trailhead are in the description. Just past the lift, the route turns right where there's a not-so-obvious sign just above me. When I cross the Lake Ford Creek on this quaint covered bridge, I am now on the Williams Lake Trail. Elevation 10,160 feet, or thereabouts. Temperature this morning 32 degrees. Given that there's 3,000 feet of gain to reach the peak, the often rocky trail takes a brisk approach to the climb, rarely letting up. Within a half mile, I reach the Wheeler Peak Wilderness, where the seemingly untouched Engelmann spruce forest thickens. Eventually, the terrain opens up a bit to a boulder field. Sometime around mid-August, the dates change from year to year, this place closes for what the Forest Service calls local community traditional purposes. That is, the Taos Pueblo conducts private tribal ceremonies. Nearby Blue Lake is sacred to them. They believe it's their place of emergence and the home of their spiritual beliefs. However, in 1906, 48,000 acres of the Blue Lake watershed, where I'm standing, was taken from them. And after fighting the federal government for years, it was returned to them in 1970. After nearly 2 miles, there's this nondescript sign at the junction to the Wheeler Peak Trail. With a false sense of morning energy, I decide to take a detour to the lake, which is about a quarter mile away. Downhill, that is. To be honest, Williams Lake isn't that impressive, but hey, it's a lake, and worth the effort to see it. Altitude, 11,040 feet. I don't fish, but if I did, I'd leave my pole at home. Even though Williams Lake is a natural lake, it freezes solid in the winter, so there are no fish. Also, camping isn't allowed near the shore. The rule here is to find a campsite at least 300 feet from the lake. Back up the trail I go to the Wheeler Peak Junction. The climb is at first fairly gentle, although, let's face it, at this altitude I'm a little wheezy even on the easy stuff. Which doesn't last long before the forest starts to disappear and the trail takes a decidedly steeper approach to its destination. Now, before this trail was built in 2011, the recommended route to the summit was a scramble up a talus slope on a raggedy used trail. Now, incredibly, at least to my mind, this trail was built in just 14 days by an 8-person Forest Service trail crew working 12 hours a day using nothing but hand tools.
You know, if nothing else, I think we need to slow down every once in a while and appreciate the effort that goes into these wilderness paths.
Eventually, the way gets rockier and rockier. My advice for walking on the talus: be careful, go slow, and watch your step. I can't prove it, but I suspect most people who have accidents on routes like this trip on the rocks. As for me, I slowly work my way up the path. I wish I could say otherwise, but I'm definitely feeling the burn. The hardest part ends when I get to the top of the ridge where the trail goes slightly up and down over a couple of false summits. I'm feeling pretty unstoppable at this point. I can't quite see the top from here, but I know it's close. And then finally, the last climb is a small rock pile at the peak. For no discernible reason, someone a long time ago hauled this small cannon up here and attached it to a plaque that explains why it's called Wheeler Peak.
This was originally called Taos Peak, but renamed Wheeler Peak in 1950 after George Montague Wheeler, who led a party of surveyors and naturalists in the 1870s. Their survey, authorized by Congress, mapped for the first time the U.S. west of the 100th meridian at a scale of 8 feet to 1 inch. For those who aren't cartographers, the 100th meridian roughly splits the U.S. in half, so Mr. Wheeler had a lot of territory to cover.
Befitting the fact that I'm at 13,167 feet, the views across the Sangre de Cristo Mountains are spectacular. While the peak has a reputation for awful weather conditions, especially in the afternoon, I've lucked out. There's no wind, and the overcast skies don't look like a potential lightning storm about to strike.
Up until 1948, Trucke's Peaks was the designated high point in New Mexico, and then a survey by Harold D. Walker confirmed Wheeler Peak was the high point in the state.
The way down feels steeper than when going up, and the talus seems trickier to negotiate. To save my knees, I take it easy. The hotel in Taos isn't that far of a drive away, and I've got all the afternoon to get there.
That was a great climb.